morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun. Good, good, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good. Good morning, sun. Good morning, life. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love.
And good morning. How are you today? Let me just check some audio levels. Testing. Loud and clear. Looks okay on my end. I'll keep an eye on it. So today is a holiday weekend in the United States. So cheers to that. I'm looking forward to that. And a lot going on. And I've already been working for about 5 hours today. So I'm going to just do a recap of some things that I have been seeing on Twitter, some learning resources, some interesting stuff, and thought I would share what I'm seeing. So with that, I have received a few questions via email or Twitter DM, and the general question is, how can I learn Business Central, whether that's Business Central on the technical side or Business Central application or functional side? And I happen to know a guy who maintains this list of Business Central resources, and he's been doing it for a couple years now, I think. And so this is my blog post. It's bit.ly/BC resources. And I now, as of June 30th, I had 228 links to resources. Now, 228, obviously you're not going to dig into all of those. Many of those are, say, blogs or Twitter users, things like that. But the blogs can be very valuable. But when someone asks me, how do I learn Business Central? I, one, point them to my blog post with all these resources. And two, I say, well, depending on what you're looking for, I would start with the online training resources here. There's Erik's video on setting up a SaaS sandbox. So if you don't have access to, say, Business Central or Nav or Docker already, you can just set it up on SaaS. It takes a couple minutes and you have a SaaS sandbox you can play with and learn the application or potentially develop against it. There's also the Business Central Online Learning, MS Learn, which has a whole host of Business Central courses. And what do they call them? Learning paths. And then there are the individual modules if you want to choose individual lessons. And then there is I don't know who it is, but amazing group of videos called Use Dynamics. And they have created a bunch of video user guides on YouTube and I think on their website. It's a phenomenal list of resources. And then if you aren't familiar with Inecta University, they have a great channel where the guy goes through and I think he must have 200 or 300 videos on Business Central application functionality. So really, you could spend a couple months learning this stuff. Now, the online learning paths is probably in a progression type training. The Use Dynamics video guides, you could probably do a progression. The Inecta tutorials are a bit kind of all over the place, different topics, but he does have series, like maybe the purchasing series or fixed assets or whatever. So you can build your own learning path there. And then I list books. So there's Erik's Field Guide. There's Jeremy Viska's First 20 Hours with Business Central. Both available in electronic versions. Erik has a hard copy version available. There's a book, Programming Dynamics 365 Business Central. There's Development Quick Start Guide. There's a cookbook, all on this resources page. So you will not have a lack of learning material. Let's put it that way. Now, there may be a little, it may be overwhelming and you may need some structure there. I totally get that. And you may want to pursue paid classroom or more formal training. Makes total sense. But if you're the type of person who can learn on your own and pick a couple topics and stay focused on those, no shortage of resources here. If I missed anything, let me know. Okay. So, in case you haven't heard, another DynamicsCon conference is coming up, scheduled for September 20th through 23rd, 2021. And lots of sessions. I just glanced yesterday or day before, and I think there are over 30, like 32, 33 Business Central sessions so far that have been submitted. And there will be a voting period where you, the attendees and community, get to vote on sessions. And there are rules like, I think it's typically one session per speaker to allow more people to speak. And then there are some limitations like one speaker per organization, so that, we don't have 5 people from the same ISV or partner or whatever all speaking and presenting their sessions. So, but with that, I believe there is a technical track and then an application or functional track for Business Central. And there are some really interesting topics that you may not think of as being related to Business Central per se. And for instance, Christian Lenz has submitted a session, how to take care of your team of developers. So it might be easy to focus on how do I code? How do I use this technology, this tool, and technical things or application features? But there are a lot of organizational concerns that an ISV, a partner, or even a customer may need to address. And so he starts to address one aspect of that. And how do you build a team that can develop on Business Central? How do you communicate, coordinate, and work together? And on a related note, Waldo has a session, how do I manage my team for product and customer development? Like, how do you organize around these things? You have technical skills, but then you have project management, you have DevOps, do you use Kanban boards? And what are the best practices for managing these processes? So it's interesting to see these sessions pop up. I think there are plenty of submissions probably on, say, technical topics or application topics, but I think some of these more soft skills or ancillary part of running an organization will be really interesting to see. So, more learning. So another learning resource. If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, Erik Hugard is just cranking out videos. Just in the last month or so, looks like he has 10 videos, which it's quite a schedule because these are, tutorials and instructional topics and code samples. And he shows you how these things work. And so really just subscribe, check it out. Tons of great resource. So I was interested I had a question about how BC handles encryption or how you can use encryption in AL. And so I remember that Erik did a video on hashing in AL he just used the example of you could do a hash of a record for data integrity and watermarking, so to speak. So I knew he talked about that. And so I was able to find the AL app extension that he refers to, find it on GitHub, review the source code, review the README, and understand some of the parameters and encryption options in Business Central AL. So I refer to this regularly, and I just have to remember, just check his channel first when it comes to a technical or programming topic, because he has very likely covered it. You may have heard that as of July 1st, Business Central has changed I guess it's the licensing or the terms around Business Central storage or capacity. And so the URL references tenant and admin center capacity, but commonly storage. So it used to be that I think it was 80 gigabytes. I forget what the old value is, but now the storage capacity for a customer's tenant across all their environments, production and sandbox, is now a total of 80 gigabytes. Used to be you could have so many sandboxes or copies of production. I forget what the old rules were, but now it's like, hey, this is your limit, 80 gigabytes. And so that clarified things. And what they really changed, I believe, the key distinction is additional storage. Before you had that 80 gig limit, and the question was, what happens if I exceed that 80 gigs? Well, I think they had one or two options for additional storage that were quite expensive. So they realized that and realized they had some customers with a lot of users or higher volume, and the pricing model didn't necessarily scale well. So they restructured the pricing. And so now, in addition to your 80 gigabytes, I believe you get this additional storage per user license. So if you have 10 essential users, that gives you 20 gigabytes of additional storage for your entire environment, or all of your environments, your entire tenant. So that allows you to scale, or allows customers to scale their storage based on number of users. It's a nice relationship. It seems to make sense. And they all do allow you to purchase additional storage, and I believe that price is now much more reasonable for that additional storage on top of the user-based allocation. Now, one very important point to remember, which was added at a small footnote, and some people may not realize, word is slowly trickling out, but this change also affects the blob storage, tenant media thumbnails, whatever you want to call it. All of that is now also counted in the storage capacity quota total. So it used to be, I think it was like an additional 40 gigabytes just for the media storage or blob storage. Now everything is under one umbrella. So if you have the 80 gigs, 10 users for additional 20 gigs, that 100 gigabytes will need to handle all of your environments plus all of your blob storage. That's my understanding. Let me know if I got any of that wrong. But you can read about it here in the URL, and there's probably a few details you may have questions about. I am not the person to ask about licensing, but thought I'd share that in case you didn't know. And I see that Business Central is available in more countries, which is wild to see this list. Algeria, Bangladesh, Egypt, Kenya, Lebanon, Luxembourg, Malta, Morocco, Nigeria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, and Tunisia, which, coming from the Dynamics GP world, primarily US focused, it is wild to see this list of countries. However, it seems that this support is primarily through partner supported translations or localizations, but still the offer at least is now available, whereas before, if you'd go to sign up, I think it would say, it's not available in your region. So I think this allows them to offer it in those countries, and I don't know what geographical Azure region it's hosted in, but it will be based on the international W1 version of Business Central, and they have partner localization. You see there Algeria and Bangladesh and Brazil, etc. So pretty cool. I mean, it's really amazing to see that. Yeah, it's really nice. So it's taking over the world. Okay. Next up, string concatenation performance. Ah, yes.
Here's something I found on the web. According to Bailden.
Alexa, stop. Wow. AIs will not take over the world anytime soon. Okay, so string concatenation performance. I see that Stefan Marone has a blog post, Coding for Performance #1, Text Builder. So this is a common programming concern. If you are concatenating strings repeatedly, what is the performance impact of that? And you can just do your basic concatenation, like there you see plus equals A. You can do that. If you're doing that many times in a loop or a very fast process, there could theoretically be performance concerns. And so what he does is he compares append with string and append with text builder. He does those two different techniques, numerous iterations. And you see in this table here, append with string 100, 1000, 10,000, 100,000. And he does the same thing with text builder. And really, until you get to, there's a jump from 10,000 to 100,000. String goes from 40 milliseconds to 4 seconds. So that's a pretty big difference. Whereas text builder goes from 37 milliseconds to 1 second. So obviously, if you're in the very high volume string concatenation process, text builder has some benefits. But in the real world, which he mentions, and I've done the exact same research in the .NET world, people say, you need to use string builder in .NET because it's more efficient. Well, I'm concatenating 5 strings. I did the research, I did a test, it doesn't matter. Just as a practical thing, I think my arbitrary number was 100. If I'm not looping and concatenating more than 100 times, it doesn't matter. And it's simpler to just do string concatenation rather than use a string builder. And in this case, it appears that Business Central has a higher threshold than .NET. And really, you start to see it somewhere between 10 and 100,000. So maybe it's 25 or 50,000 iterations where this starts to really have an impact. But if you're doing more than 10,000 string concatenations in a continuous loop or something like that, you may want to just double check what you're doing. And is there a better way of doing that? Because, maybe there's a valid reason for that. You're building a log file. Who knows what that is? But yeah, I generally don't do a lot of string concatenation. I may do 20 or 30 in an entire procedure or something like that. But it's out there. If you have higher volume, consider text builder. Lower volume, personally, it doesn't matter. A user will never notice the difference between 6 milliseconds and 10 milliseconds. And even if you have 100 users running that process, as user interactions go, it will be spread out across several hours as to become meaningless. That's my interpretation. So, Visual Studio Code extensions. And thanks to Jeremy Viska for reminding me of this. If you were not aware, Luc Van Vliet hosts the Areopa webinars, and he has some great topics and presenters. And he has been doing a series over the last month inviting VS Code AL extension developers to speak with him and present their solutions and discuss the VS Code extension development process, share their extensions, talk about them, show what they do and how you would use them. And I have not had a chance to watch these.
I'm doing a series over the last... I don't know it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to have to turn off Alexa and Siri in the future. Wow. So where was I? They are doing a series to talk about their Visual Studio Code extensions, and there are a lot of extensions and they have a ton of great functionality. So oftentimes I'm like, okay, I'm getting this code cop warning or this message in AL from the compiler. How do I resolve it? And it's like 99 times out of 100. Oh, this extension just handles this automatically. It's like, okay. So the challenge is, how do you know that? There must be 20 different extensions or more with dozens of features, really rich features and functionality. And to know all of those 100 different features, not easy. So this series is one way to get to know about those extensions. So it is a solid 4 hours of content. So I'm going to have to sit down and binge watch this at some point and jot down ones that will be of value and try to start to use them. So anyway, great resource. And there are other Areopa webinars that you might want to check out. And the speakers that have been featured so far, 12 speakers so far, including Luke. So, thank you to them. They've done my big head. Thank you to them. They've done an amazing job. These extensions are like when you see how much they do, it's a lot of work, and pretty amazing. They're offering them for free in the Visual Studio Extensions library or marketplace. So thank you to all these folks. Awesome job. And with that, I am going to start my holiday weekend. For those in the US, happy 4th of July. Don't get too crazy with the fireworks. And I'm going to have a nice barbecue with friends and family, and smoke some ribs and pork shoulder, and maybe jump in a swimming pool. And then we'll be going on a road trip. So have a great weekend. Okay, cheers.
Good